a packed courtroom, where the wealthy and powerful often believed justice bent in their favor, something happened that left everyone in shock. A little black boy stood before the judge, not as a witness, not as an observer, but as his mother's lawyer. His small frame carried a weight far greater than his years, and when he spoke, the entire room fell silent. What could possibly drive a child to take on such an impossible role? And what unfolded next would leave not just the court, but the whole world speechless. The courtroom sat in heavy silence, every breath tense, every eye fixed on what would happen next. No one expected it. No one could have predicted it. From the wooden bench in the corner, a small boy rose to his feet. His shoes were worn, his clothes oversized, but his eyes burned with a strength far beyond his years. And then, in a voice that startled everyone present, he declared, "I'm my mom's lawyer." The room gasped. The judge froze. The opposing attorney let out a mocking laugh, but it quickly died when he noticed the boy's unwavering gaze. This wasn't a game. This child wasn't there to entertain or amuse, he was there to fight. The boy carried with him the weight of every sleepless night he had witnessed, every tear his mother had shed, and every cruel word she had endured simply because of the color of her skin. He had seen her silence too many times, beaten down by a system designed to fail her, and now he refused to let her face it alone. He reached into his small backpack and pulled out crumpled sheets of paper, handwritten notes, and photocopied pages of laws and cases. His handwriting was messy, but his research was undeniable. He had studied, observed, and absorbed every detail of his mother's battle. And now, standing in front of men and women twice his age, he spoke with a clarity and conviction that echoed through the room. At first, some dismissed him, but as his words poured out, something shifted. His arguments were sharp, his evidence solid, his voice trembling not with fear, but with fire. He spoke of fairness, of dignity, of how his mother had been dismissed, mistreated, and ignored, not because she lacked ability, but because she was black. Each sentence hit like a hammer. Each point made the courtroom lean forward, captivated. The silence grew deeper, broken only by the boy's voice as he built his case. Even the judge, who had entered the room with indifference, was now listening intently. The billionaire's lawyer shifted uneasily, objecting here and there, but even his objections sounded hollow against the boy's determination. The child was not begging for pity. He was demanding justice. And for the first time, the billionaire himself, sitting smugly at the defense table, felt his confidence begin to crack. This wasn't supposed to happen. A courtroom designed to intimidate had been taken over by the unlikeliest of voices. A little boy standing tall not for himself, but for his mother. The tension inside that courtroom reached a breaking point. The little boy's voice, steady and unshaken, had shifted the entire atmosphere. What began as murmurs of disbelief had turned into a haunting silence. Every person, holding their breath, waiting for the judge's response. But before the judge could speak, the opposing attorney rose from his seat. His voice dripped with arrogance as he waved a dismissive hand toward the boy. "Your Honor," he sneered, "this is nothing more than a child's performance. He doesn't understand the law. This is a joke." The boy's face didn't falter. Instead, he took a deep breath and pulled out one final sheet of paper, one he had kept hidden until this very moment. It was a court ruling, one he had stumbled upon in his endless nights of research. A ruling that proved his mother's rights had been trampled, ignored, and denied. His small hands shook as he held it high for all to see. His voice cracked but grew louder, stronger, fiercer. He explained how the law itself supported his mother's case. He showed how precedent proved that justice was on their side. His words weren't just powerful, they were undeniable. The attorney who had mocked him fell silent. His smirk vanished. The judge leaned forward, gripping the edge of the bench. Even the jury, who had seemed unmoved at first, now sat wide-eyed, realizing they were witnessing something extraordinary. And then, it happened. The judge, who had barely spoken throughout the hearing, raised a hand to silence the room. His gaze locked onto the boy, not with pity, but with a respect no one had expected. For a moment, the weight of centuries of prejudice, inequality, and injustice seemed to hang in the air. The billionaire shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His confidence, his power, his money, none of it could silence the truth spilling from the lips of a child who had nothing but courage. For the first time, the mighty man looked small, exposed, vulnerable. The boy's final words echoed through the courtroom like thunder. "If the law doesn't protect my mom, then what good is it at all?" Gasps rippled across the room. Some wiped tears from their eyes. And in that moment, the balance of power shifted. The child, standing barefoot in oversized clothes, had done the unthinkable. He had forced a courtroom built on intimidation and inequality to listen, to truly listen. The air was electric. The judge's gavel struck once, sharp and final. The entire room leaned forward, waiting for the decision that would change everything. The courtroom was still. You could almost hear hearts pounding in the silence that followed. Then, with a steady voice, the judge delivered a ruling that would forever change their lives. He declared that the boy's mother had been wronged, that the evidence, the law, and justice itself demanded she be set free from the chains of unfair treatment. Gasps filled the air, followed by applause that grew louder with every passing second. People who had come expecting just another case now found themselves witnessing history. The boy's mother broke down in tears, clutching her son so tightly it seemed she would never let go again. Her sobs weren't of sadness, but of relief, of pride, of a love that had carried them through the darkest nights. That little boy who had no wealth, no status, no power, had stood against a system designed to crush him, and he had won. The billionaire, once untouchable, sat frozen, in disbelief. His arrogance had crumbled, his influence had failed. No amount of money could protect him from the truth. For the first time, he realized that power doesn't always come from wealth. Sometimes it comes from courage, from innocence, from a child who refuses to stay silent. News of the trial spread like wildfire. Across the country, people spoke of the little black boy who had stood in court and changed everything. He became a symbol of hope, proof that even in the face of oppression, voices long ignored could rise and be heard. But beyond the headlines, beyond the awe and disbelief, there was something deeper. This wasn't just about one boy, or even one mother. This was about every person who had ever been silenced, overlooked, or dismissed because of who they were. This was about challenging a world that too often judged by color instead of character. And so, the boy walked out of that courtroom not just as his mother's lawyer, but as a reminder to us all. A reminder that sometimes, the smallest voices carry the greatest power. That justice, though delayed, can still be won, and that no amount of wealth, influence, or arrogance can silence the truth when it is spoken with courage. So I'll leave you with this question. If a child, with nothing but love in his heart and truth on his side, can stand up against injustice and win, then what excuse do the rest of us have for staying silent? Because in the end, silence protects the powerful. But courage? Courage changes the world.